So I do have a few slides, just a brief talk, just to share some things related to reskilling, especially in this age of artificial intelligence. ChatGPT has gotten a lot of attention recently. Salesforce is coming off of their Dreamforce conference as well. So there's a lot that's happening, a lot of changes in the workplace. And so specifically for this group, I'm going to talk some about why this matters and how you can take advantage of where we are today in order to prepare for your tomorrow as well. So this is all to do with reskilling in the age of AI. And a little bit about me real quickly. For those of you that are not familiar with me, my name is Mike Wheeler. I'm the founder of Mike Wheeler Media, and my learning platform is examreadynow.com. And my goal is to train, inspire, and equip you for your own cloud career, especially with AI now. And I have 8 Salesforce certifications. I have taught well over 300,000 students now across 187 countries that collectively consume well over 1 million minutes per month of my video training content. I've worked on the Salesforce platform in various capacities, and now I serve primarily as an online instructor, okay? And so one thing that caught my eye recently was a report from IBM. I'm going to try and share this link in the chat as well. And let me be sure I get this sent before I continue on. One moment here. And this had to do with the change and the shift in the skills that executives feel are important in this oncoming age of AI. And here, some of the takeaways, or some of the key takeaways from this report were that you can boost your performance with human and machine partnerships. And they found, and this is based off of interviewing thousands of executives across all sorts of verticals and industries, they found that at least 1 billion people in the global workforce will need to reskill in the next 3 years. The idea here is that many of these jobs will be augmented instead of just simply being replaced. And so there will be an upheaval with these change of jobs and different specialties as well. I'll talk about that some here in a moment. But one thing to really take away from this, or one of the key findings that caught my attention here, and this is kind of hard to see, I probably should try and zoom in a little bit, but let's see. I don't know if that's any better at all. But the way that you read this graphic here is that they do this report every few years. And back in 2016, the topmost desirable skill was a proficiency in STEM skills. And over time, that has dropped down to 12th place. And what has risen to the top are a lot of these soft skills, such as time management skills and ability to prioritize. And so ability to communicate, willingness to be flexible, agile, et cetera. And so what I did was I prompted ChatGPT to kind of break down those skills into hard skills and soft skills. And what we saw back in 2016 was there was more of an emphasis on technical skills and those hard skills, less emphasis or importance on the soft skills. And so the good news is that even though AI is a thing now, and there's a lot that can be outsourced or relegated to AI, there's still this need for what is known as the human in the loop. And a lot of these soft skills have to do with things such as time management, ability to work effectively in team environments, and more. And you see that here on the slide. And I can make this slide deck available too after the fact to you all, or you can send that out if you wish. And so there's some huge implications here. And what I call this, or what I really see when I kind of take a step back and think about the implications of the changes in the workplace, is that there's this seismic shift of constraints, is what I call it. And so prior to AI, there was a mantra. Let me get my clicker off of there. Prior to this advent of AI really reaching the mainstream, there was a mantra being pushed that everyone can code, and that wasn't true. I never believed that everyone could code, nor should everyone code. But the goal of these tech leaders that were saying that was to try to grow the talent pool. They were paying exorbitant prices for coders. They wanted to have more supply because the demand was growing and growing, okay? So these tech leaders saw the writing on the wall that basically where they found themselves in this economy, in this reality, is that you see that there's been this human desire to consume content, and that's either information or entertainment or education or whatever it may be. And that pace of that growing appetite for that information was outpacing humanity's capacity to create it. And that is why these tech leaders were saying that anyone can code. They were hoping to keep up, but they also behind the scenes were developing and investing heavily in the development of AI. And so it seemed like almost overnight, once ChatGPT crossed the chasm into the mainstream, that we start seeing AI everywhere. It's not like everyone just copied ChatGPT and OpenAI's solution for AI. Other companies have been working on their own versions of AI as well, large language models, generative AI, those sorts of things. And so we now can see that humans simply can't create enough to meet those supply demands for information, education, et cetera. But now with generative AI, the machines can do a lot of that for us. And that's what is a key distinction for what is coming down the pike with this artificial intelligence. Is it's not just predictive any longer, and we're more familiar with predictive technologies. If you've ever consumed a weather forecast, that is a predictive AI. That is predicting what might happen. If you've ever dealt with a sales forecast, that is predictive based on past performance, and that had a lot of help with quote unquote machines or spreadsheets and calculations, algorithms, those sorts of things. But what is new in this era of generative AI is that it can generate content for us. It can generate images, can generate text, can generate music, can generate games, et cetera. So now we see this push to a low code or no code era. And that mantra has changed from everyone can code to now sayings such as everyone is quote unquote an Einstein. This is something that was quoted this week at Dreamforce, which is Salesforce's large conference that they hold every year. Their AI platform, they have named that Einstein, and now it's called Einstein 1. I'm sure they will rename it again, but the idea is that it's not that everyone can code, but everyone can learn how to use AI tools and leverage those to where they too can be as intelligent as an Einstein, if you will. And so before the advent of AI crossing the chasm into the mainstream, it was human capital and talent, especially with technical abilities. That was our biggest shortage. And now post AI crossing that chasm into the mainstream, time is our greatest constraint. And that is why we're seeing this shift to soft skills becoming so important. And some of those things listed previously, such as time management, working together, teamwork, et cetera. And so welcome to the low/no era. You're seeing more and more tools and solutions and terminology coming out of tech executives' mouths and from the media as well, as far as low code solutions or no code solutions. And I'm seeing mentions of low effort/no effort, because a lot of those time-consuming tasks that we used to have to deal with can now be offloaded to AI. This can lead to what I'm calling prolific productivity, or a new area or era. And this is one that I see Salesforce really embracing as well. And Salesforce has been a platform that I'm very familiar with. And what drew me to it was the ability to do a lot with clicks instead of code. It was very well known as a low code platform. And now with adding the advent of AI onto that, this gives you the ability to execute on ideas. And that's a very important distinction, because it's one thing to have an idea, but then to be able to execute on it is where you can too become a creator in what I call a consumption society. And these ideas that you can execute upon can be your own or of others as well. And so this helps you to be really relevant in the creator economy also. And so I think the main intersection of all of this, or where this is heading, what the key skill, if you bundle all this up, those 12 that I showed on the graph earlier, that problem solving is a key skill, because it encapsulates all of those things. It's the intersection of those hard and soft skills. And then as well, just really realizing that I don't think there will ever reach a time that the machines will take over. I think there will always be humans in the loop identifying and signifying what are some opaque patterns, things that aren't readily apparent, that even an AI may not be able to pick up upon, and be able to provide some feedback and help train those large language models as well. And so what I'm seeing, and I've studied Salesforce very closely because I've taught so many students on the platform, helped them get certified and launch their careers. I've seen a fundamental shift from Salesforce, and I believe that you'll see a lot of other technical companies go and do likewise, is that prior to the advent of AI, Salesforce, I equated it down to marketing, sales, and service, where you attract, detain, and retain customers. And that was the end of the story. Now, Salesforce, in their Dreamforce conference, they've been pushing this equation of data plus AI plus CRM plus trust. And that is what I'm moving forward as identified as the 4 fundamentals of Salesforce. I'm not an employee of Salesforce. I'm just an outside observer. I'm a trainer. I own no stock in Salesforce. So I tend to tell it like I see it. And so what I'm seeing is that what used to be just attract, attain, and retain customers, or that customer relationship management solution, is now grown into so much more. And so you're seeing this need for areas around data management, data science, because the thing with AI is that it will magnify whatever you put in front of it. And if your data is bad, then it's going to get worse. If you train your large language models on false information, then you're going to have issues of it hallucinating information and spreading misinformation. And that can be a bad user experience. That can be a bad experience for your customers as well. And just imagine if you trained an AI on the worst service reps. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a bad customer support experience, and if a support rep was being rude to you or just hung up on you or something like that, imagine training your AI to mimic that behavior. That would be an undesirable thing. And so this is why Salesforce is putting in guardrails, and other companies are putting on guardrails, to where that final piece of that equation of trust is so important, because that is where you will find the core objections and the resistance to embracing AI from companies is we can't trust these companies with our data. We have concerns about what our data, where it's going to be found, et cetera. So a lot of companies such as OpenAI, Salesforce, and more, they have to overcome those objections by doing a lot of work and a lot of thought on masking privately identifiable information and meeting all the different government regulations, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of changes afoot, and even recent changes with Salesforce, especially, to where they are launching the first of their artificial intelligence certifications, and it's fundamentals of AI, basically, as it relates to Salesforce. And let me put this in the chat as well. And I've got a live class coming up, which has garnered a lot of interest, I must say, because I've done a lot of live trainings and a lot of on-demand trainings, and I've never seen so much interest in a certification course. We've had hundreds of people sign up so far. We're still 6 days out from the start, which is next Thursday. And it is a 4-week class. We'll be covering the 4 knowledge areas of that certification exam. I've priced it low at $49, and then you can use promo code MOMRelaunch at checkout to save 10%. And also my website is examreadynow.com. And so I want to open it up to see if anyone has any questions, and it can be about anything. It can be about your careers or relaunching after time off from the workplace, Salesforce, AI, or any number of things. So I want to just ask you to put those questions in the chat, and there's some already in there.
Great. Thank you, Mike, for sharing this code here with us. And yes, anybody who has any questions, please feel free to write in chat or ask us. We would love to know more about this course. For anyone who's new in the AI or getting started in AI, how will this course help them?
Sure. So I took the course on the day of its release and passed it, and I was really impressed with how there's a fundamental shift with even Salesforce's training. Prior to these associate level foundational fundamental courses, it was all hard skills. And this really was right down my alley as far as click here, do this, knowing where to click, when to click, and why. This particular course and certification is more foundational, and there's a lot around trust and the importance of data management and just the principles of how AI works and the different types of AI. And it really wasn't until I was taking the exam that a lot of light bulbs started going off in my own head as to the importance of, in this new era of generative AI, and it's not just predictive any longer. And so I think a lot of things that I connected the dots on, I kind of alluded to this in my remarks earlier, was that we do have some familiarity with algorithms and AI in the predictive realm because of things such as weather forecasts or financial forecasts, as far as creating pipelines, saying we're going to have this much revenue this quarter and this much the next, and even how Salesforce is configured based on historical performance and setting those percentages of probability. There's a lot of math that happens behind the scenes. Now, with the advent of AI, a lot of that can be trained on. That data, that historical data that these companies are sitting on, can be fed in safely, and that's where the trust comes in. There's been a lot of work around, okay, when you enter in a prompt, and that's just a text instruction to an AI, where does that go? Where does that data go? And so Salesforce is doing a lot around securing that information to where it does not go outside of your own organization. And so the main takeaways are that you'll learn a lot of fundamental information around AI in general, and then also start to gather some of the information around how Salesforce is approaching AI and the implications of that. And so I think that it's advantageous, or it's a great time to start, because the playing field is being leveled. Everyone is having to reskill, myself included. I'm realizing the day that all of this came out, all of my courses are basically becoming quickly obsolete because the tools are changing yet again. That's the thing with training on software. And so I think it's good news. It can be scary about where AI is heading, but because it is so new, everyone is at the ground level. It is the start of what I think is the fourth industrial revolution. And so none of us are experts. Now, I'm sitting here knowing a thing or two about it, but none of us have a decade of experience on this, really. And I did have some exposure to Salesforce's approach to AI on the predictive side with their initial offerings of what they call Einstein, create courses around that back in 2017, Einstein Discovery, discovering patterns, et cetera, et cetera. But with the generative side of things and how a lot of this work can be leveraged and used with AI is where you can provide more effective marketing, sales, and services. So identifying where your role or your niche might be starts with learning the fundamentals, and then also improving your soft skills, especially communication and problem solving, because it all begins and ends in the realm of AI with a human inputting a prompt to an AI. And so you've got to be able to communicate very effectively. So these concepts around terminology and career paths, such as prompt engineering, this is a whole new realm and a whole new field. And it's something where you don't just do a one and done approach, but you're training inside of it, even a single chat. Oftentimes I will be training the model inside of it in one single chat to give it what I'm needing, and then the format that I'm needing, et cetera. I've used it to create practice tests and study guides for Salesforce, because I know that content. I've trained it on what I know, and then I have it do what I needed to do. So I think it's the foundational entry point to starting to understand AI and where it's heading.
And then for prior background or prerequisites, do you need to be admin certified for this? That's one of the questions.
No, you don't. That's a great question. And so Salesforce has two associate certifications. One is associate. I have a free test for that one on my website. I did a 4-week free class on that. The AI associate, it is a paid course, $49. Use the Mom Relaunch promo code. And then, so the path that I recommend is that you do associate, then AI associate, and then admin. Used to be, before these associate level certifications, the starting point that I told everyone to go through was admin. And personally, I would have a vested interest in continuing to preach that, because I'm the best-selling instructor for the admin certification. We've had a few new ones come along, but I recognize the path for everyone now is associate, AI associate, and you can start with AI associate as well, but I would recommend you get associate also, and then go for AI go for admin, because what I really identified and saw in practice was that the administrator certification was simply a bridge too far for some people. Not that they weren't intelligent. It didn't matter if you had IT background or not. There's just such a gargantuan amount of information and concepts you've got to learn, that these associate certifications, either the AI or the non-AI, will help bridge that gap and get you closer to kind of like that 10-yard line, to where you can punch it in, get the admin, and then branch off from there. So there's a lot of questions usually about what path should I take. I think your own personal interest, background, and experience will help dictate that. But I'd say get the associate level ones, then the admin, and then branch off from there. And there's all sorts of options. And Trailhead on trailhead.salesforce.com has a lot of different day in the life, a lot of resources around pay ranges for these different career paths as well. So it's really matured over the past decade or so that I've been in this platform. So
Eugenia, I think that I hope that helps answer your question as well. I just read your question in chat. Um, And please feel free to ask any question. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and pick some out here? See.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Namdata. I have a question for you. This is specific to the workflow rules
Mhm.
in Salesforce, right? So I have learned from the Trailblazer community that they're going to stop implementing workflow rules starting summer 23 release.
Mhm.
Is that true? And because I'm still seeing questions in the practice exams.
Right. So this has been something that's been discussed. So what we're referring to are some process automation tools. And one of the challenges with Salesforce is they had workflow rules, process builder, they also have flows, they also have Apex code, all of which can be used for automation. The goal is for them to retire workflow rules and process builder and go with the flow, if you will. I'm still seeing the ability to create workflow rules in the free developer accounts and processes, not so much in the enterprise level live instances of Salesforce. They are trying to get organizations to go with the flow exclusively. Now, with that said, I've seen some screenshots. I was not at Dreamforce, but I saw people reporting from Dreamforce saying that they now have AI tools that can build flows for you. And I made a comment about how all flow courses are now instantly obsolete. May have been a bit of a hyperbole on my part because you'll still need people to know how to do flows, to double check them and make sure. But over time, you can train an AI to learn from those mistakes, train it, give input, et cetera. So it's still to be determined exactly when those workflow rules and processes will be retired. I know back, it was about 4 years ago when I was working on my last quote unquote day job. I've since teach full time now for myself, and I volunteer to keep my skills up, if you will, for different nonprofit organizations. But back then in 2019, I was in a live instance, a large organization, financial institution, and they were still using S controls, which supposedly were retired a decade ago. And so there's a lot of stickiness. Once you build a lot of automation and your organization relies upon it, it's hard to get those converted over sometimes. So I would say it's a moving target. I have some doubts about those being retired, and with it returning back to the free developer accounts caught my attention. I think that ultimately, if we can get to where we can build automation with prompts instead of any of these tools would be ideal, but those would be really hard to explain, really hard to visualize. And that's one of the challenges. So I think it's still to be determined. And Salesforce has also introduced tools called Migrate to Flow, but they're very brittle. They can only handle very basic use cases, can't handle cross-object updates. So when I'm demoing those tools, I've got to be very strict about what I'm setting up for it to convert over. Otherwise, it'll break. So I think that I think it's to be determined. So
So
I
it's
have my
up to the
doubts.
organization if they want to keep them or retire them for good.
Yeah, I would say for an organization out in the real world and not just in a developer account, I think you do need to get those converted over to Flow and try to retire those and get those put away, because they have also released ways of controlling the order of execution. And that was one of the challenges with having that many tools, was you couldn't control if you had several different workflow rules and processes and Apex triggers and flows firing when something happens on a task or on an opportunity or an account. Those will fire off at different times. And so now they've got
different
tools
times,
for controlling execution order. So yeah, I would recommend going with the flow and not just clinging to workflow rules and process builder, but looking at ways of, and because that also gives you the great exercise of reevaluating, because things that were needed 2 years ago may not be needed today. So just some optimization and speed gains as well.
Sure. So are we going to still see them in the exams in the recent studies?
I have not heard if they've gone away entirely from the exams. So I think you may still see them. I think the key is understanding the limitations of each tool. And that was one of the things that I always taught was which automation tool do I use, and what can a workflow rule do? What can a process do? What can a flow do? But given where we are right now in this path of trying to retire those legacy tools, all else being equal, I would answer flow if you know, because that's probably I see Salesforce, even in their exams, they kind of advertise for Trailhead and for what they're trying to influence behavior. And so I would answer Flow if given the opportunity. So
Sure. And I have one more question. Since you mentioned flow and process builder, so I always get confused how to differentiate the flow from the process builder. The
okay.
functions of them are very close.
Right. So I think some of the key differences, Flow can do screens. So you can do screen flows and do guided steps, such as a classic example is the create a case flow. There's a template for that in the platform now, and it gives you the call script for the rep. A process builder can't do that. Process builder is more behind the scenes, and it can evaluate multiple criteria, and it can determine, okay, is this opportunity worth more than $1 million? If so, then do this. If not, go down to the next evaluation criteria. Now, flows can do that as well. And so it can get a little confusing. Now, there's certain actions that process builder can do and certain that it cannot. It cannot delete records. If you need something to delete a record, that is a flow, But there are things that process builder can do. It can do a chatter post. Workflow rules couldn't do that. You can see very quickly, and those that are watching that don't know what we're talking about would be like, wow, this sounds confusing. It's because it is, and you don't really know the limitations of a tool until you try to build it, and then you hit a brick wall, and then you try the next tool, and then that's what I used to teach was try and do it with a workflow rule because it was frankly easiest. And if it can be done with workflow rule, then use process. If it can be done with process builder, then resort to flow. My opinion, flows are too complex. I think that there's this shaming involved if a user finds something too complex. The technical among us shame us. It will like, oh, you just need to bite the bullet and learn flows, Mike. But I really took to heart some of the things I heard Steve Jobs say back when he was among us was that if users find something difficult, it's not the user's fault, it's the software's fault. And when iPads were released, I was working as a technical writer back then. And I knew immediately because I was watching my 3-year-old child navigate the interface. I thought, no user guide required. Hello. So that's why I'm excited about AI and the ability to create automation with prompts. I think that and it's going to take a while. It's not going to be overnight. And a lot of what's being demoed at Dreamforce could be called vaporware, but at least we know where they're thinking, where they're heading, what the future holds. And I think it'll get here in like 12 to 18 months to where it may be an entirely different tool. I predict that it will not be called Einstein 1. I think that there'll be more and more importance on prompt engineering, the ability to communicate what you need. And, oh, by the way, it's not just a single prompt, but you could feed inside of your own large language model, whether it's in-house with Salesforce or some other language model, all of your solution documents. So, hello, you don't have to communicate all that, whether it's through voice or typed, but feeding the requirements documents, the vetted and thought out, and the meeting notes and the yeah buts, and did you think about this? All the decision making to where, and the 1,000 other solutions that these large consultancies have already done, you better believe they're going to be feeding that in order to be able to solution quicker to where they can take those learnings. This is something a human can't do, and propose that ideal solution. So I think that if you don't know flows at this point, hang tight and see what the future holds. Don't worry about it a whole lot.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
That's useful. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome.
Hi, Mike. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
This is hi, Mike. This is Nargis. Yeah, I'm glad to meet you here. Excited also. Yeah, I think you just my answer came a few of your whatever you just said, but still I'll ask it. You coming up to AI, you mean sometimes company might losing the opportunity a lot. I'm talking about hundreds, okay? Just by looking at the pipeline, anyone can say that's okay, we lost this many opportunities. But is there any way, you think AI can inform or let us people that, okay, why we lost that many opportunities if we given to AI?
Right. So I think that it's a mixture. It's more predictive as far as you can train AI on your historical data, and then it can identify patterns as to likelihood to attrit or attrition, basically. And that's happening now, and that's been happening some as far as this concept of next best action. And prior to AI and all that, I was involved in some tools and creations around customer satisfaction and really trying to gauge like pulse scores, and then follow up for those that fall into certain categories, some rescue efforts, if you will. And so AI can start to identify likelihood to not renew a contract or to go elsewhere based on behavior. And then also for those that you're able to save, you can train the AI on here are the steps that we took, and can identify as well even optimal times to reach out or schedule a meeting or whatever it may be. Now, it's not a one-size-fits-all proposition of what works for one company may not work for another. But I think over time, much like our forecasting tools for sales and this whole concept of predictable revenue, and this is how companies can forecast out 12 months into the future what they expect their revenue to be, is because of past historical performance, what's in the pipeline, what their sales processes are. And so it's not only helping to prevent that attrition, but also identify opportunities for growth. And this kind of gets into this circular thing as far as attract, attain, retain. And companies are always wanting to turn service into a profit driver to be able to identify opportunities for growth, to bring that back into the marketing side, to try to, and this kind of has to do with account-based marketing as well, if you're familiar with ABM or any of that stuff. I'm fascinated with all this kind of stuff, but AI can help you to do that next best action or propose those steps, or even identifying other potential contacts to make. And that's where some of the things that I saw demoed in some of the videos I was watching remotely at Dreamforce is with established accounts, identifying core contacts that you could reach out to that may be some lateral business that can be held. So I think that, and the thing to keep in mind as well is your competitors are going to be doing this as well. And so to keep up is really embracing that. And what's fortunate for many of us is that it's kind of this 50-50 equation. For every company that is embracing AI, there's the one that's really resistant to it as well. That's natural with any new technology, and especially those that already have their own, they're enjoying their comfort of where they reside right now, and they grow comfortable. They want that which brought them to the dance to continue to keep them at the dance. Those of us that are not necessarily incumbents and embrace this new technology can have a leg up, get more of a head start that will be helpful. So does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
All right.
Hi, hello, Mike.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Shweta here, and I
Okay.
have a question with you.
Okay.
Could you share a specific example or any case study where AI has significantly enhanced a Salesforce process or strategy, and what lessons can professionals draw from it? I'm curious to know how this AI with Salesforce is working.
Okay. So a lot of this is still very new with Salesforce specifically. And so Salesforce has some success stories and some demos that they shared as far as how AI is being used inside of individual companies. I'll give you examples for myself. I use Salesforce and also train Salesforce. And so I've used AI for my processes as far as outlining courses and also identifying things that I left out. And sometimes it's a matter of I'll often iterate on these courses, these certification courses, feeding in new exam guide learning objectives, feeding in the outline from my prior course, what am I missing here, those sorts of things. And even prior work that I've done, and this was all manual labor on my part back in the day, was taking, for example, the Salesforce Administrator Exam Guide, stripping out the 102 topics that were kind of hidden in there, because I know a lot about that particular exam because I've taught it live 25 times. I've taught well over 100,000 students for that particular test. I've created 3 different versions of it on video. I've been throughout that thing, and I've answered a lot of questions. And so feeding all that into ChatGPT, training the model in my own prompt history, and then asking it to go and do likewise for platform app builder, for business analyst certification, for all these different certifications. First, stripping out the topics, much like I did for the 102 for admin, and then crafting practice test questions, crafting outlines, that sort of thing. Now, where this would relate specifically to business, though, in an enterprise level, if you think about marketing, sales, and service, and I kind of alluded to this in the previous question, but identifying other core or key contacts in an organization that you've already done business with, if you will, and also being able to train AI inside of Salesforce on user behavior. There could be suggestions on how helping identifying click paths that are problematic or where your users are abandoning the whole process. And also identifying those which are the most successful sales reps that are closing deals the most frequently, the service reps that are one and done with closing cases and not requiring callbacks, which are the bane of everyone's existence on both sides of the phone or the chat or whatever it may be. And those being identified, investigating that behavior, those activities. Are those successful salespeople scheduling meetings? Are they using tasks heavily on the platform? Are they touching base every 2 or 3 days? What is that cadence? What is that ideal cadence for keeping in contact, moving that opportunity from stage to stage till it's eventually closed and won? And so that's kind of the concept there. I can't personally give you examples beyond my own. And that's to create. That's to really create a lot more content. I'm becoming much more prolific in what I'm able to do and produce, and on social media as well. I will write something out. I will have ChatGPT check it for grammar, for things that just sound weird, and it catches things because I'm human. I make mistakes, you know. And there's so many other use cases as well. Other examples. Here's one that I do for my live classes is I will have a list of email addresses of all the students that have signed up for a class. I've got a list of all my students, like identify the ones that I already have, or if I've got duplicates somewhere, identify the duplicates, put it in alphabetical order. There's so many ways of data wrangling and efficiencies there that anytime I'm finding myself toiling in a spreadsheet or doing something that's taking more than 5 minutes, I usually find a way to have AI help me. So it's a sidekick. It's a productivity coach and expert in all areas that can really help you. And I think identifying what you don't know, other areas that I've thought of, if I were in charge of a large organization, which I'm not, I would be having QA in the test scripts to where I would be feeding in test scripts. I would be feeding in, here's our plan for testing and QA. What have we forgotten about? Identifying those gaps. You can do the same thing, never mind being over a large organization. If you're looking for your first or next job, you can feed it your resume and the job you're trying to get and ask it for potential interview questions, and also identify my gaps in my resume, my LinkedIn profile, so that not that you can lie about it and say that you have those skills, but so you can go and do something about it, so that you can gain those skills, those soft skills that are becoming more and more important, and how you can highlight those so that those surface in keyword search by recruiters, because you better believe they're using AI as well. And there's soon a lot of those people are looking at learning these technologies because they're seeing the writing on the wall as well, that they are in a precarious position with the advances of AI. So
thank you so much, Mike. Thank you
all right.
so much. It's awesome. Awesome.
Okay, very good. Any more questions? Let's go look through the chat and see
Yes.
what else we have. Okay.
So I will just ask the question that's in the chat. Somebody has asked, do we learn AI tools for Salesforce or AI concepts or functional business forecast using AI?
So I think it's a combination of both. I've kind of done both because I came into it knowing Salesforce, know it pretty well because I've taught it so much and worked on the platform so long. Also, the moment I discovered ChatGPT, I jumped all over it. So I've been doing both. And so I've always been in the mindset, and I think the nice thing about me not being a Salesforce employee or stockholder is I can tell you my honest to goodness truth about my opinions. And so I've been on record for years saying, let Salesforce do what it does best. Let, for example, other tools like an Excel, Microsoft Excel, do what it does best. Don't try and make Salesforce do what another tool can do better. So I think that it's good to get a general understanding of AI and its implications. I would recommend you get your hands on ChatGPT or some other comparative generative tool. And even image generation things like Dolly, Midjourney, whatever it may be, just to become familiar with what's possible now. And also, I would say to treat your career as your business. And so even if you're not currently employed, treating your own career and your career path as your business for marketing, sales, and service. And so you're wanting to market, you're wanting to do that on LinkedIn or other social networks. And so leveraging those tools to first come up with ideas. You may not even know what to even talk about. And so feeding prompts into AI to help you come up with ideas that resonate with you, and then follow that rabbit hole down the path of then producing content. You don't know when to post or how often to post, get that help as far as when you should release a YouTube video or build your own, how to build your own website, those sorts of things. These are all tools that are not Salesforce. Now, Salesforce just happens to reside in an area where they have a history of innovation that's interwoven inside the DNA of the company. It starts with Mark Benioff, who's one of the founders of that company. They're really good at getting everyone into alignment. So what I'm seeing as an outside observer looking in is that whole idea of data plus AI plus CRM plus trust. And so you will get exposure to how a large technical organization such as Salesforce is approaching AI. I think a lot of other companies will copy that and will follow. There'll be some that will do things entirely different. So it really just depends on what you can bring to the table. If you're more technical background, I would encourage you to learn about all things related to large language models and how to train those, looking at things such as Python and LangChain and those sorts of technologies, because those can connect with Salesforce, with Azure, with AWS. Being in the plumbing of how all this is going to interconnect, this metadata framework and all these buzzwords, these are the specialties that you can really niche down into in order to stay relevant if you are a technical person. Those of us that aren't, we've got to rely on those soft skills then to do things such as to communicate, to solution, that sort of thing. So does that answer the question, hopefully?
So, Mike, my question is really, you said data, AI, CRM, and trust, right?
Yes.
Everything starts with data. So
Correct.
data entry is a challenging nowadays, right? So how do you see and how is Salesforce dealing with this in this new AI era?
So yeah, it all begins and ends with data. And that was one of the big aha moments for me as I was taking the exam, was how, and that's why it's placed first in that equation, is because, and it was true even before AI, it's just really true now because AI does magnify your data or your data quality. There's a lot of tools you can use, a lot of mechanisms inside of Salesforce for data. The big new thing is Data Cloud, which they released last year to much fanfare, but it was called Genie at the time. And it was real-time data. There was some debate about how real-time it was. I think there was even a lawsuit. I don't know much about that, but they've gotten their act together. It should be real-time at this point. And it is the central hub to where, and this is kind of where the plumbing is, if you will, as far as where that data flows. There's also a lot of diagrams they have as far as where a prompt goes as you enter it in, and then it connects through to some sort of federated hosting and kind of a black box, stripping away the personal identifiable information, the prompt grounding, all these buzzwords, et cetera, et cetera. So I think some of the tools that would behoove people to look into would be the Data Cloud. That is where my mind is going next. And my next certification is Data Cloud Consultant. Looking at the Data Cloud implementation guide. Those are going to be really nerdy and really technical, so it may not be for everybody. But if you're bent that way, I think that's helpful. And then there's other tools as far as validation rules. Those are tried and true. It's the whole garbage in, garbage out. It's something that is not new with AI, but it's something to where you've got to be explicit about what you're wanting the output to be. It's based on the quality of the input. And a lot of times, oftentimes, when I prompt something and I don't get the desired result, I realize, oh, I should have been more specific. In some ways, even though it's highly intelligent tools, it's like trying to communicate to a child. Oftentimes I've told my child to do something, they do it exactly as I said. I'm like, no, don't pour the milk into the cocoa, container, do the inverse, So validation rules to validate that data is being entered correctly, the right format. duplication and matching rules are great mechanisms. They have tools around finding where those potential duplicates are happening, what those rules are. And it is a balancing act because you want your rules to not be so restrictive that it's unusable, but not so loose that you have 1,000 duplicates as well. And then this whole concern, and this is really newer with AI, is bias, because there's so many different types of bias, and it happens innocuously oftentimes as well. And so just identifying how there's certain data points that may unintentionally introduce bias into your large language model as well. So those are things that there's going to be a lot of debate, a lot of discussion around that. And that's going to be decisions that need to be made by the leaders and those below them in these organizations. So one thing that I've seen Salesforce specifically do that was mentioned in Mark Benioff's keynote was they have created an office called the Chief Trust Officer. And that has everything to do with ethics and how is AI being used. And I think the most powerful thing that Mark Benioff said during the week of Dreamforce this week was that your data is not our product. And I wanted to give a standing ovation to that, because there's a lot of companies out there that turn our data into their product, and especially social networks, because they give their product away for free. The saying is, if a product is free, then you're the product. And so Salesforce is real cognizant of that, and so they're putting in a lot of guardrails to protect data, much like, and this is just history repeating itself. This is why I am able to wrap my mind around this stuff, is because it's similar to how they structured Salesforce itself. It is your data is in a silo, and your neighbor that's sitting on the same server doesn't have access. And we put guardrails in place so that you don't drain all the capacity, and then everyone in the apartment building don't have computing power. There are guardrails in place so that everyone can be side by side, but not be jumping over into the other person's living space and reading their data, that sort of thing. So, so I think that's the proper approach.
Great, Mike. So we have another question, and this is prompt engineering important for Salesforce AI field?
Yes, I'm fascinated with prompt engineering because it melds communication and writing with technical things. And so I think it's very key and will be very fundamental to be able to prompt effectively. And it's harder than it seems. And a lot of people that dismiss generative AI tools like ChatGPT, they'll put in something very basic, like, what is the capital of France? And they get the response like, well, I'm not impressed, or whatever. Or they put in a prompt, but they're not real specific, and then it just gives some generic answer. The beauty is in the back and forth, and that's what is known as chain of thought prompts, or COT prompts. I have a prompt engineering course that I'm working on, and because of the things that I learned putting together that course, led me down the path of exploring prompts much more in depth than I ever dreamed of, which led me down the path of realizing I could feed it what I've done and train it on what I've done in this one certification, and then go and do likewise for these others. And I've not taught anything that I don't personally know, but I have thought about, wouldn't it be interesting if I did a practice test course for something I'm not even certified in? And I probably won't ever do that. I feel like that would be a little questionable. And I always say, well, for me to teach a course, I need to be certified in it. So I'll probably stick to that. But prompt engineering, highly important, because, and I think that voice prompting is going to become a thing, because we sit in, let's say we're sitting in a meeting and we're not listening to me talk for an hour and presenting what I think. Let's say we're solutioning something. We have some problem in Commerce Cloud or Sales Cloud or Nonprofit Cloud, and we're riffing back and forth. Turn on the voice input or record that and feed that transcript into ChatGPT or some large language model. That can give you a summary of the notes of what was discussed, decisions that were made, action items, what you need to do now. I mean, these are all massively huge. And voice is more frictionless than typing, because, and you can capture that. I've been in meetings with Salesforce consultants that are today, even before it's baked throughout the platform. And even if you're not using AI inside of Salesforce, you can use it outside of Salesforce, but have it help you. So I've been in meetings solutioning things where we're recording the conversation, feeding in the transcript, and even identifying our action items and what to do next, and producing a lot of that technical documentation, huge implications for the whole software development lifecycle. And it all begins with prompt engineering, whether that's text or voice.
So this is I'm here like for prompt engineering, right? So this is you're working on it for the course, right? You are saying?
Yes.
Like,
So I do have.
is coming up in a course.
Right. I probably should have mentioned this. I do have a ChatGPT course on the Udemy platform. So you can find that or search for that. And they're always on sale on Udemy. So you can look for Mike Wheeler ChatGPT. But specific to prompt engineering, I'm working on a course for that. That'll be coming out in the next few weeks. I probably should put my LinkedIn profile in the chat as well if you want to connect me there as a way of keeping in touch also. And also, I'll throw in my email address. If you have any questions, or if anyone's watching this on replay, feel free to connect through LinkedIn or email and ask away. But yeah, so the whole concepts of 0-shot prompts, 1-shot, few shot, many shot, chain of thought, all that kind of stuff. It's interesting how this kind of played out over the months, because early this year, back in the infancy of ChatGPT, which is just mere months ago, there were concepts more around prompt chains or prompt wheels, but now it's really settling down into different shot prompts. I think that name should change. I don't really like it myself, but who, no one asked me what I think, but I can see that changing again. But this whole idea, though, of you developing your own prompt library, this is much like a developer having their own GitHub with their own code base that they've worked on, whether that's public or private. And that becomes a rapidly increasing in value asset that you have as you develop prompts that make you more efficient, more productive, more creative, more whatever it may be. And so that is something that I would encourage everyone to be building over time, because then you can hit the ground running on your next assignment or next whatever with these prompts that you can then leverage and copy. These are templates, And I think there will be businesses arise around prompt templates related to Salesforce. I've thought about, creating that as a product. There's so many, that goes back to the biggest constraint being time. And it's like, there's not enough time for me to do all these things I have ideas on. And so yeah, prompt engineering course coming soon. But I think that's a key skill that everyone across the board needs to get better at. And I think we're underestimating the importance of that.
Thank you, Mike. Looking forward to join the course again.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Mike, this is Tina here. I had 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first one that I wanted to know was, is this the AI course that you are starting next week? Is that going to be your only batch, or will you have future batches as well?
Okay, so yeah, this is Salesforce's first AI specific certification. And so that will prepare you for that certification. And there are going to be other AI certifications come by way of Salesforce, and other companies will have their own AI certifications. I do anticipate doing follow-up courses around other AI certifications related to Salesforce. I do anticipate as well that there will be many organizations creating AI certifications. I do see people out there creating their own certifications out of the wind. Basically, I'm not going to do something like that. That's their way of selling their software. I think that the software needs to sell itself to the point of becoming so demanding that it behooves everyone to get certified in it. That's usually how this works, such as Salesforce. So yeah, I think there will be others coming down the pike, such as AI consultant. I think there will be consultant certifications around marketing, sales, and service, and AI specifically. And so yeah, I think there will be many. And then the AI will permeate across all of the certifications of Salesforce. I think that not only did I say earlier that all flow courses are now obsolete, I think that all courses are obsolete because it's going to change the interface. There's going to be a right sidebar with the little Einstein logo till they change that. And he's going to be offering up suggestions of next best actions. I don't have any of that in my 100+ hours of video, and no one does. So we're in for a lot of work. And what's your next question?
Okay, so because if I am not able to join this upcoming batch, and if I wanted to join maybe, then would we have recorded classes just in case I miss one of the classes? So
Yes,
that
yeah,
I would be able to.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I forgot to mention. So there's the 4 live classes. Replays are available for 1 year. And so that's how I've set that up so that you can access that at your own pace. So whether you complete it 4 weeks, 4 months, or a year, it's fine. So you would have the ability to rewatch, also make any slide decks and any chat logs available. So it's as close to the live experience as possible. So yeah.
Okay, so that answers all 3 of them, because my thought was basically if we did not attend the upcoming one and if we wanted the next month, maybe if you offered the same course next month, would we receive the coupon code through Mom Relaunch, the 10% discount?
Yes, I can keep that available. So I've got Mom relaunched to where it's 10% off any course on my website. So, and there's no expiration date on that. And I will more than likely, because of the immense interest in this, be holding more cohorts for the AI associate. I am considering doing something where it's both associates at the same time, maybe longer. I haven't worked out how that's going to work, but if you're not able to make this cohort, there will likely be other cohorts. It's a forward-looking statement. You never know what the future holds. If I'm able to, I imagine I will be doing that.
All right, thank you so much, Mike.
Okay.
Hi, Mike. This is Juhi, and I have
Hello.
a quick question. Hello. So thank you for answering everyone's questions first.
Sure.
I just have a quick question. Now, where would these courses, these recorded courses, be available on LinkedIn, or how do we connect with you?
So my platform, my learning platform is examreadynow.com. And I put in the chat, I can put it in again, the information on the live class, but you can go to examreadynow.com and use promo code Mom Relaunch, and here it comes in the chat again. And that's where you would access for live. And the way that the platform works is that soon after we're done, it has the replay available as well. So it integrates with my Zoom account really nice. And yeah, so it's made my life a lot easier, because before I had all these different systems. And so I'm on a learning management system now that can handle that. And so yeah, they'll be available there at examreadynow.com. So
Okay. Okay. So even for replay or recorded, we'll have to go there.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Thank you,
Perfect.
Mike.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Mike, one last question.
Sorry, Nandita, one more. Mike, do you have a few extra minutes? I know
Yes, I have until the top of the hour. So
Okay. All right, go ahead, Nandita, then. Thank you, Mike.
Hey, Mike, I know that we are going to attend your AI associate course, but I also want to know if Salesforce is going to come up with a Trailhead module for the AI course in the future, because I haven't seen one on Trailhead yet.
yes, so there are many Trailhead modules, especially post Dreamforce. They've released a lot more. They have a trail mix to where it will prepare you for the exam. The challenge with Trailhead, and this is why I think people like me exist, is because Trailhead, there's a lot of reading involved, not a lot of video, no ability to answer questions or ask questions live like this. And the trail mix for the AI associate has an estimated completion time of over 25 hours. And so some people have that amount of time to give. The challenge is, after you read all of that information, is knowing, okay, what's going to be on the test, what's not. There's a lot of information, and it's a balancing act, because I'm a trainer. I want you to understand the why, the when, the why, the how, etc. Some people approach it like, I don't care about all that. I just want to pass the test, And so I try to find that balancing act to where I give what's needed to pass the test, but also the contextual as to the why it matters to you, So as we were talking about large enterprises, I brought it back down to you and your career and treating your career as a business. And so yeah, there's some out there on Trailhead, and what we're referring to, for those that don't know, that's Salesforce's own learning platform. It's gamified. You can get badges and points, and there's different modules to where you can complete in your own Salesforce playground or own Salesforce free account. And oftentimes it just sets you up for success. It gives you the easy path. And so I think that what I try to do is give you some real world examples and scenarios as to, okay, here's something that might be a little more tricky or sticky, if you will, and try to be more concise rather than requiring you to read for 25 hours. So this live class is 1 hour per week. I originally, before the exam guide was released, I thought, okay, I was guessing that there would be 4 knowledge areas, and I guessed that it'd be data plus AI plus CRM plus trust, which it was. But with AI melded into all of them, some were weighted more heavily than others. So first week, we're going to cover well, let's see.
The fundamentals.
Yeah, we're going to cover 2 of the knowledge areas, and then those final 2 are the most heavily weighted, and so those will be be covered across multiple weeks. So in the end, the 4 weeks, 1 hour each, and then I'll also be doing some assignments as well for some of those Trailhead modules. And also, I hope to have some of my on-demand content for further supplements as a bonus for the course as well, so you can get more hands-on in that as well, and you'll have access to that for a year as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, good. You actually answered my next question as well. I was about to ask you about how important is it to learn all the Trailhead modules to pass any kind of Salesforce certification, right? Because like you said, there is a lot of information to consume. Sometimes it gets stagnant, sometimes it gets difficult to come to the finish line. So
right, yeah, it can be challenging. People can do it. I think that I try to help you along the way, maybe save some time, and then I structure things differently. A lot of times I look at how Trailhead structures things, and everyone has a different opinion, but I'm like, oh, I would do this differently, or I wouldn't even go there. But that's just my own personal opinion. A lot of that's just gut reaction from being a technical writer for 15 years prior to doing Salesforce, having to learn systems quickly and then communicate them, assuming no prior knowledge. So I always try to not do a lot of acronyms and assume no prior knowledge in how I approach teaching. So.
Yeah, because a lot of times I myself ended up practicing a lot of questions than, preparing the unending text on the modules.
Right, yeah.
So do you think is that a good approach, like depending on practicing more questions to clear the exams?
So the approach in general for the certification exams, what I encourage my students to do, especially if we have a live equivalent and then on-demand homework, if you will, I always encourage doing the live work first, then the on-demand weekly assignments, and then as time allows, Trailhead, I kind of pick out and curate the things that I feel like are the most relevant so that you don't get overwhelmed with too much. So that would be the cadence or the sequence. And I would also recommend or might add to not do practice tests until the end of your journey where you feel like you're probably ready to test. There are other tools and mechanisms to kind of gauge where you're at, such as checklists. I mentioned earlier how I extracted the 102 topics out of the exam guide. I turned that into a checklist. So you can score yourself there to see how well you know these things. But if you do your practice test too early, then it's hard to recreate that experience. You're kind of burning through those resources too early in order to assess where you're at. And you miss the opportunity to learn the concepts. People fall into the trap of trying to take a shortcut. I'm just going to take practice tests. And then they try to memorize the answers. And then when the wording is different, they're really tripped up with scenario-based questions. If you know the concepts, it doesn't matter how it's worded because you know the concepts, so.
Yep. But thank you, Mike. Thank you for being patient and answering all the questions.
Certainly. Glad to do it.
Yes.
Jay, do you have time for one last question?
If Mike would like to take it. Okay.
Okay. Just I'm new to Salesforce. Been studying for maybe the last couple of months to take the exam, which I should be taking soon. But I've noticed it's difficult to get a job in the field already as it is. And with this shift to AI, do you think that's just gonna make it even more difficult? I'm kind of wondering if I should even bother.
So yeah, there are a lot of challenges in the marketplace. There is a saturation of talent because there's been a lot of layoffs, and the economy has kind of not been the greatest recently, kind of heading that direction where I'm seeing a lot of really seasoned people getting laid off, like, that's interesting, that's surprising. And so it does make it difficult for those that are newer. Some things you can do, and I think where you should kind of head in that situation. And what is your background? What have you done prior to this?
Quality assurance, but in service, not I'm new to the IT world, so.
Okay, cool. So I think really honing in on Service Cloud concerns and even field level service. And that's where people and technicians are going out in the field and servicing refrigerators, cars, whatever it may be, a lot around route optimization, et cetera. That path for you would be admin, Service Cloud, and then field service. And I would bake AI into all of it. I would have AI in every buzzword on my LinkedIn profile and learn the lingo and how to, you learn to talk it and then learn to walk it, and use the AI tools. It doesn't have to be inside of Salesforce. I think that's the challenge of every software company as they bake AI into the platform, is making it so frictionless there that people don't bounce out into ChatGPT. But for now, just bounce out into ChatGPT and leverage that to where you are a service specialist with so many years of experience, now getting your AI chops into place and understanding and how to leverage that, even without a technical background, being able to understand that process of resolving issues in a service environment. Is that what you meant by service, or were you talking service?
I did.
I started thinking,
Thank
well,
you.
maybe it's food service, or maybe it's
No.
hospitality. Okay, perfect. So
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's really actionable. So appreciate it.
yeah. And that's the thing is the economy is interesting for everybody. And I guess this is the thing, I think about this a lot, whether, and with Mom Relaunch, those that maybe have been out of the workforce for a while, that's a challenge. Those of us that are older and have gray beards, that's a challenge, ageism, And so I think a lot about leverage and how can you find leverage? And so I think that AI is a huge lever that you can pull to give you an advantage. And I have always said that, because one of the common pushbacks is, well, you don't have enough experience. But the thing is, everyone that's working in whatever job they're in at some point didn't have enough experience, but someone gave them a shot. The reason I landed my first Salesforce job, and I was super green, I did not know the difference between a profile and a role. I landed in a job with a large tech company that was a service organization. They were actually selling seats. Butts and chairs is what they would call it. It was people answering calls and chats, et cetera. My boss, a couple of years later, she told me the reason she hired me over people that had much more experience was because I seemed like I could figure things out. I exuded a confidence in being able to problem solve. And lo and behold, if not what I featured in my slides, was the core intersection of all of those skills is problem solving. And so that's the ability to think creatively, work as a team, also communicate. If you can't communicate your solution, you're lost, So some of these things, some of this advice that I give, it would be listen to podcasts, listen to communicators. I've got some core people. I'm like, man, if I could talk like that, Simon Sinek, and even books, Deep Work, Cal Newport, no social media, and yet he's a great writer, great communicator. Those sorts of things that you can do that will set you apart, and it's winning the room. All you need is one person to say yes. And I've got a lot of thoughts, a lot of videos out on getting to the frictionless yes and all that kind of stuff. And it's solving those problems, not introducing problems. That's will make you highly hireable over the field. I see a lot of people, or especially around my age, that have been in the ecosystem a long time and are getting disenchanted, and they're treating AI as just a hype, and some of them are even walking away. This is a great opportunity because us old fogies who are slow to adapt will lose out. For those of you that are coming in new, fresh set of eyes, great experience in the past, bringing your passion, your interest. So it's definitely worth it. I would say, if not here, where? Because even though there's a saturation, try to go. And this was another thing that I saw when I was posting online about STEM skill needs cratering. People were disagreeing vehemently because, I see the demand is greater than ever. And that's true somewhat, but there's such a saturation there. There are so many Java developers and Ruby on Rails and coders, et cetera, in different technologies. But where there's a shortage now is the human in the loop that understands how all these things will interact. That's where, and the ability to orchestrate all that and get all those pieces to work is where you'll really shine.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And good luck.
Thank
Great.
you.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for being here and answering all our questions. This has
Yes.
been a wonderful session, and I hope everyone found it helpful. And thank you all for your questions and also joining in today as well.
Yes.
So thank you, Mike, very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you on September 21st,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
See you there for
6
sure.
days away, but who's counting, right?
Yeah. I am already registered, so I'll be there.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes, we will be there.
All right.
Be there.
We'll
Thank
see you there.
you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mike, for your time. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Mike. Thank you.